And welcome to the Dr. Tech Show, where myself, Pauline Roche, and Sweyn and occasional guests guide you to the world of online communications in a show which is the brainchild of the late great internet evangelist John Popham. And in traditional fashion, we have a weather report. Sweyn, how are you? Where are you? And how's the weather where you are?
The weather here is lovely. I'm in Orkney as usual. We've had loads of rain though over the past week, but today it's nice.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And our special guest today is Emma Weston from Digital Unite. Emma, where are you and how's the weather where you are?
Hi both. I am just north of Portsmouth and the weather here is dry, so that's good, but it's a little bit, it says a little bit moody. It's a little bit, no, it's September, that sort of thing,
Bit of a teenager going on there,
yeah,
huh?
Total yeah. A bit of a teenager, you got it.
Yeah. Well, here in Birmingham, we have grey skies and cloud, but no rain, which I'm glad to say. And my plants on the windowsill are doing very well in the light, so that's good. So we'll do a few reports, Emma, before we come back to you, so you can relax, and we'll cover a few stories or a few items that we usually do. So we picked up that on the 15th September is International Day of Democracy. And this provides an opportunity to review the state of democracy in the world. The UN says this is as much a process as a goal, and only with the full participation of and support by the international community, national governing bodies, civil society, and individuals can the ideal of democracy be made into a reality to be joined by everyone, everywhere. And in the course of this blurb that Sweyn has on screen now, it says around the world, civil society organizations answered the UN's call to action to address and counteract the wide range of ways the COVID-19 crisis may impair democracy and increase authoritarianism by one, developing media literacy and digital safety, which is more critical than ever as activism is forced online, so as to address the risk of suppression, interference, and closing of civic space. Fighting misinformation, disinformation, and hate speech, which have mushroomed in the crisis. And the third one was training journalists remotely to report on the impact of the pandemic with in-depth, fact-checked coverage while staying safe on the front line. I just picked those three out because they obviously relate to our topic of digital inclusion and digital skills, and are things that we talk about on this program from time to time, especially the middle one, fighting misinformation and disinformation. We had somebody on recently, Sweyn, didn't we, who was talking about that, a previous guest. I can't remember the name now, but yeah. So yes, it is a topic.
It's a theme that's come through over the last few months, isn't it? Just to add into the mix of the priorities for digital inclusion, and they include staying safe and not falling victim to misinformation.
Yeah, very good. And then on the 16th September in 1997 was when Apple Computer Inc. named co-founder Steve Jobs the interim CEO. And we all know what happened after that and how Apple went from strength to strength, and everybody either loves or hates Apple. I'm agnostic, I suppose. I don't know, but it's. I mean, he was big on the design, wasn't he, Sweyn? He kind of went for how it looked.
All about keeping control over the product and how it looked, and making sure that it worked in as many circumstances as possible and reliably.
Yeah. Not an Apple fan myself. Emma, are you Apple or agnostic or what?
I'm slightly, I try and be agnostic, Pauline, because I feel it's a good position to take in this world we inhabit, because my job, my focus has been literacy and use and skills and understanding. So I was a long time Apple user, and I switched to Android because I thought it would widen my horizons.
Yeah. Okay. I'm a professional agnostic and have been for many years. It's horses for courses. It depends what your priorities are. Apple costs a bit more, but is a bit more predictable and reliable. Usually, I actually think that the Apple phones are good, partly because they last longer in as far as that they stay within the apps. They don't update update into obsolescence quite so quickly as Android phones. So there's that. But each has its advantages and disadvantages, and you just pays your money and takes your choice in the end.
I must say that I will probably go back to Apple. My foray into Android land has not been quite sweet and dreamy. But that's not product placement, right? That's just
no, that's
just
personal
that's just a
preference.
comment.
That's user experience. But I think it's been useful to have experiences in both.
Absolutely. Yes, my work phone is an Android phone and my personal phone is an Apple phone. Right? I don't, they both work and they're both fine.
Yeah.
I nearly fell out with Apple over their decision not to include an audio jack in the iPhone after a certain model, but I've got over my disappointment with that now. So.
That's very mature of you.
He has been known to do that. Yeah. Okay, I'm strictly Android. I had an opportunity once when I was upgrading my phone to go for an iPhone, and I was very tempted, really tempted. But I thought, no, I'm telling other people to use Android, so I have to stick to my principles. So I've stuck with it. Maybe when I'm a little bit older. Anyway, moving on. 18th September is the first ever International Equal Pay Day, and I was really pleased to see this on the UN website. Celebrated for the first time this 18th September and represents the long-standing efforts towards the achievement of equal pay for work of equal value, and further builds on the United Nations commitment to human rights and against all forms of discrimination, including discrimination against women and girls. And it goes on to say that across all regions, women are paid less than men, with the gender pay gap estimated at 23% globally. Gender equality and the empowerment of women and girls continues to be held back owing to the persistence of historical and structural unequal power relations between women and men, poverty and inequalities, and disadvantages in access to resources and opportunities that limit women and girls' capabilities. Progress on narrowing that gap has been slow, while equal pay for men and women has been widely endorsed. Implying it in practice has been difficult. And there's a live event on International Equal Pay Day. That was 2020. I wonder if that date's wrong, Sweyn. Do you see the data on the screen also says 2020, doesn't it? I wonder, but this was meant to be the first day. I think somebody that's a typo, because this is the first ever day they've had it. So the event is called Building Back a Better Future of Work by Ensuring Pay Equity. And the Equal Pay International Coalition will host a virtual global call to action to encourage all labour market actors to take the necessary steps to ensure that equal pay is at the heart of recovery efforts worldwide. So yeah, it says the live event takes place on 18th September at 9 a.m. EDT. So we know that gender inequality in the digital world is still very prevalent in all countries. So it's one that we would like to see worked on eradicated eventually. Okay, moving on. This is one on when I look for events, I look on Eventbrite for events around digital and tech and stuff. And I saw this one coming up, and I thought, oh, that looks interesting. And then of course it's my event. I have this new job, Emma, with Northfield Community Partnership. I'm a digital literacy coordinator, and we're doing a launch event on Wednesday. So I thought, well, why not? It fits the criteria.
Yeah.
So it's my launch event, and it's a partnership between there was a partnership between two neighbourhood network schemes in South Birmingham, Northfield Community Partnership, Age UK Birmingham, and Gateway Family Services, and they identified in Weston and Northfield constituencies a lack of digital literacy support, not only through lack of data, but also knowledge and devices. So this partnership project has been established to ensure that older people across both constituencies have access to a digital lending library, which will provide them with access to a digital device, which will part address their digital exclusion through providing a laptop training and ongoing support. And we've got a bank of laptops in the library, which are data enabled. So you get a dongle as well with data and some training resources. And the aim of the project is to build greater resilience to digital illiteracy in the two constituencies. And the learning will be used to inform the wider work of the 10 neighbourhood network schemes across Birmingham, and it will be made available widely to digital projects in Birmingham. And we're in touch with other projects in the wider Birmingham and across the West Midlands. So I'm very proud of that and looking forward to the launch.
That sounds like a great event.
We'll have to have someone on the programme from the... Oh, no.
As well as me, yeah. We've got the Lord Mayor coming, so we're very pleased about it. Apparently, Lord Mayor of Birmingham this year, Mohammed Afzal, Councillor Afzal, is very keen on digital inclusion, so that's really good to hear. One more event before we come to our very special guest. On the 18th and 19th September, London Design Festival 2021 has open studios. And they're calling it Makerversity, which is a membership community of professional makers and disruptors, all businesses who are making something amazing for a living. And they assemble this community in shared co-making spaces for radical and wonderful creative businesses working in ways no one can predict. They run physical spaces for a curated community of members, attracting and assembling the leading voices on innovation and future making. So they're a catalyst that fuels the raw talent of today. And on this weekend of 18-19 September, Makerversity will open up its space in the basement of the prestigious Somerset House to the public, and they'll give guided tours of the space and its community. And they have 250 members, a selection of which will be opening their studios, workshops, labs, and offices to showcase their practices. And these members range from designers, artists, creatives, makers, inventors, and entrepreneurs working across such themes as material innovation, health tech and architecture, contemporary craft, digital manufacturing, and product design. So if you're interested in, does that sound like the kind of thing you're interested in, please do go along to that or sign up for that on Eventbrite. Okie dokie.
That's an in-person event, Pauline. We haven't had many of them over.
I know.
Yes,
They
go
did
somewhere
say
and take part type event.
they did. My event is in person as well.
Oh, sorry, I missed that.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. They did say at the end as well, they're observing, as we are, all COVID safety guidelines and stuff. So yes, do go, but stay safe. So coming to our special guest on the Dr. Tech Show on the 9th of August, we mentioned this great new program called Inspire, coming out of Digital Unite, who I've known for many years and always thought very highly of. So we were delighted to see this e-learning program, which says it turns staff into enthused digital inclusion activists, capturing their imagination of how they can contribute to society. And it's been created in partnership with Capgemini, and it's a microsite with tools and a ready-made framework designed for workforces. And today we are delighted to have Emma Weston, OBE, the CEO of Digital Unite, as our special guest to tell us about it and Digital Unite's history with digital inclusion. And a bit about Emma, gathered from her online profiles. In 1996, armed with just a bike, a computer, and lots of neighbours and friends who needed help with a new thing called the internet, Emma Weston set up Digital Unite. And today she runs an award-winning social enterprise working with hundreds of organisations and supporting thousands of people to achieve digital inclusion and enable change. Emma and Digital Unite want a society where digital technologies and the skills to use them support inclusion and participation for everyone. And she knows the most effective and sustainable way to realise that is through empowering people to help other people with digital skills. That's why Digital Unite is the only organisation that focuses exclusively on high quality vocational training and support for digital champions, with over 3 million people accessing the guides and resources on their website every year. And in 2012, she was awarded an OBE for services to digital inclusion. Emma, you're extremely welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much for inviting me, Pauline and Sweyn. It's an honour to be here.
Thank you very much. I don't know if you ever met our founder, John Popham. Emma,
yes,
you did. Okay.
Yes. I've hung out with John over the years a few times, and he ran some workshops for us as well and did all sorts of things. Yeah. Great guy.
Yeah. Sadly missed.
But
yes.
What a legacy he leaves, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Tons and tons. And I know his family are keen to see, the legacy continue. And we're very proud to continue this part of his legacy, which his family say was one of his pride and joy. So that's great. So let's go back to your early days in technology then, and the riding around on a bicycle. What age were you then?
So how old am I? I'm 51, so 90. I would have been 26.
Okay, right.
Okay, so there's a very important point, I think, actually, Pauline. It's going to be a remarkable thing to say on a Dr. Tech show, but it's true to say I really am a Luddite, okay? And this is what makes a very, I think, insightful leader of a digital social impact organization, because I knew at 26, and I still know now at 51, that no matter how good you get at anything and how familiar you are with it, you're always going to need help. And that principle of supporting other people is integral to our work and always has been, you know. And I used to say on my bicycle, when I started back then, it was like everyone forgets this stuff, right? Because there are lots of young people, including my children, who look at me like I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, there was a time before the internet. No.
It's
So 96 was just like, it was the start of the World Wide Web, really, and everyone was very excited and in a pickle. And you know, it's the same. Do you know what my observation? One of my observations, I have many, and they can get quite boring, but would be what's changed. You know, there's still a lot of people in a pickle, and I'm still running Digital Unite because of it, which is a great thing for me. But it just goes to prove, I think, that it's never over. You know, that the learning is never over. And it was interesting to see you highlight that stuff from the UN, because that's been really at the core of my sort of belief system around this work, is that I know it's not for everybody. It wasn't 26 years ago, it still isn't now, but equality of access is fundamental. And if not everyone has the same access and choices around digital, that's not, you know, it's just not acceptable. And it's inexorably linked to the quality of information, our ability to work out what's fact and what isn't fact, our sense of participation, you know, collaboration. It's more important than ever. So paradoxically, I think it's got trickier, actually, in some ways, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But, you know, I got on my bike literally to cycle around London and help people out. And I'm still on my virtual bike doing the same thing.
What was it like back then? I mean, what kind of devices do people have? What was in
Oh, but you know,
their heads?
it's like it was the times, if you know, when you had to like dive under everyone's desks and plug things together, and they made that sort of beeping modem sound, like beep, and everyone was thoroughly confused about everything. So yeah, we're talking about, you know, it's when mobile phones were this big, right? So things have come a long way in terms of that stuff. But,
and was it all kind of individuals in their homes you were going into, or did you go into businesses as well?
So another quite interesting thing about the start of DU, I think, was it was not, I didn't intend.
Sorry,
is that me? Is that you? Oh, she's disappeared.
I think Pauline's had a caller, so
she's been called.
She's been called away.
I didn't realize DU was going to become the business it did. So I had a job with a web design agency, and I set up classes to help beginners to the internet as of my sort of community activity.
Sure.
And I got the support from, do you remember when there were cyber cafes and all that?
Oh, yes.
Stuff? Yeah. So I managed to get my local cyber cafe to give me their space when they had dead time. And I brought people to that space, and I was doing it as my sort of giving back piece, really. But I managed to get a press release about what I was doing in the paper, and just everything went nuts. I got phoned up from people all over the UK saying, "Can we come to this class?" Because it was focused on older users. And that's when I thought, okay, there's a demand here. You know, it's not just people. I was in London at the time. It's not just people in London. It's people everywhere that need this sort of help. So from that moment, I try to work out a way of making Digital Unite a business. So I had my little classes in the cyber cafe, and then I also did one-to-one support, which was when my bicycle came in. And I would go off and help people on a one-to-one basis. And then because of the demand, I then set up essentially, it's like a franchise model, but it wasn't a franchise. So I trained other people to be the trainers. So that idea of the champion, I think, is as old as the company as well, really, because I realized that I wasn't going to single-handedly make even a dent in this. But and there were enough people like me working in their local areas, then we could maybe get somewhere. And I built that network up over the years to, at its peak, it probably had 70 trainers in it. But it was very much fueled by initiatives under the then Blair government, which had put quite a lot of investment into IT skills. And those were quite golden days, because we had things like individual learning accounts and currency to learn. And so that made a massive difference to people's readiness, I suppose, to go on that journey. So then I had a network of trainers from sort of Cornwall to Scotland, delivering that one-to-one training on bikes or other modes of transport. And then their learners were their customers, as it were. And I kept their skills up to date and their training up to date and the resources. And so from that model, the business grew. And then once I realized that that model had its own inherent weaknesses and difficulties in terms of scalability. You know, if you want to scale something like that, it's very resource heavy. If you want to maintain quality, it's very resource heavy. So that gave me challenges because there was not a lot of money coming in. So I thought about adapting the model. And that's when I started working with social housing providers. Because then I was thinking, well, a lot of my audience is in situ. So it's not Emma and Bicycle versus London. I could turn up and do more of the class stuff and one-to-one stuff, but you know, people are convened at those points. And that model worked very well, very quickly. Then I used my trainers to go into social housing and do those things. Then the next, can I keep talking to my boy?
Yeah, do. No, it's fine.
And then the next iteration of that was, again, it's all about scale for me. Well, not all, but a lot of it was like, okay, this is still limited in terms of impact. And I think another big thing for me was ownership. So it's all very well that people employ Digital Unite and its trainers to set up their IT programs and their training programs, but wouldn't it be so much better if these housing providers owned their own solution? Because if we could get them on board as employees with their staff, then the whole dynamic changes. And we all know that one of the most important things to getting people on the journey is engagement, the engagement piece. And it's much more effective if you're being engaged by someone you can relate to. So again, let's make it as localized as possible. And that's when we started training the staff and resident volunteers to be the trainers. And so that's really the model we're still with, except that now we're doing most of that online. Again, it's around scale. So I cannot physically get people to, and nor should I need to get people to Edinburgh, Cardiff, whatever. But if we put all our training resources online, people can access them all over the world if they wish. We're very much UK focused at the moment. So yeah, from bicycles to bicycles in a different way.
Yeah. So where did your original training and interest in digital come from, Emma? What was your background?
Do you know? I'm a linguist, so you know, I literally had my interest in digital is in the sense of, you know, it makes life easier. But the real motivation for me was my late father, who was living on his own. And when the web exploded, we were all using email. He was living in Suffolk. I was not in Suffolk. I was like, this is a no-brainer in terms of connecting him. But he was my trickiest learner, right? And then I just thought, there are millions of people like my dad down the countryside, you know, but it was, I knew the difference it would make to him and to me, you know, let's face it, and to his world and to my world. And that's, you know, everyone has those stories. It's a common theme. So I think that's why I said at the beginning, I'm essentially a Luddite. I was like, it was a needs-based trigger for me. But it was like the doors of perception, because then I was like, you don't need to be an expert. You just need to be able to navigate your way around it. You need to feel confident, including confident to ask and to challenge. And I think those things are super important, and they're super important. If people go on to learn programming, that's awesome. But I would rather there was a mass of people who felt confident and comfortable and could participate and share, you know. I think that's that's my, continues to be my main focus. If we can build that groundswell, then everything else is possible. Of course it is,
And you've got thousands of technological guides on your website.
Yes.
How do you keep them all up to date?
With a lot of effort and some scheduling.
I mean, it's great. I do refer people to them on a regular basis. I think there are is a link at the bottom of the page.
Links the links at the bottom.
Sweyn, yeah.
Yeah, if you go right to the bottom of the page, Sweyn, it's in the footer to the actual.
A lot here.
Yeah,
those are all. Those are all the courses for digital champions. If you click on technology guides, that is the content for learners.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
as you
400, 400 plus, yeah.
As you said in your intro, Pauline, we are because, the other thing I think is really important is you cannot boil the ocean, right? I'm not single-handedly going to solve this. But what I can do is try and grow and nurture networks of digital champions. So our focus is on the champion courses. And that's why on our website, we major the front end of the website very much. This is what you can do as a champion. But those technology guides are plugged into everything else we do as well.
And were you the first, do you think, to start using the word champion, or where did that come from?
I don't know the answer to that. I think it's one of those things that just became currency quite quickly. Also because it's kind of logical, isn't it? Really?
Yeah.
I mean, I think increasingly, I think the word digital is a moot point, It's champion, right? Digital is just the means. We're trying to empower people and connect people using digital to look after their health, their well-being, their education. This is just the way we do it.
I suppose digital tools were a big leap forward in terms of how to do that interactively at scale.
Correct.
I suppose that's why the digital tag has hung about.
Yes.
Because pre-digital, I mean, you could do publicity campaigns, you could broadcast stuff, you could maybe phone people up, but connecting everyone together in the way that we can increasingly through digital things. It's kind of, it's difficult to articulate how different that is.
Yes.
Especially now that we have all been doing it for, or I say all, that's been the kind of default outlook on life by certainly service providers for the last 10 years or so anyway. And that there are there's nearly 2 generations now who, even if they can remember a modem sound, can't remember what was before that.
Yeah.
So
what was before that?
What was before that? Yes. Nothing. The telly, I suppose.
No.
Yeah.
Telephones, I suppose.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, I agree. I think the digital, it's been a useful word, but it's good, I think, now that it's becoming challenged and also morphing in meaning into much more widespread stuff than the actual technology.
Yes. Yeah. I think that's right.
So in 2012, Emma, you got this OBE for services to digital inclusion. That was pretty good. Was that for something particular, or generally your work with Digital Unite?
Just generally my work. I was actually, because people nominate you and you don't really. So when I got it, I was like, whoa, this is kind of slightly left field. But I found out that I then thought, who has done this? Who
should I thank?
And it was someone in the DWP. So a lot of my work still is trying to be part of. I will not say the word influence because that would be also a moot point. Government departments and so on, and we've done a lot of work over the years with DWP, CR,
policy work, you might say.
Policy work,
yeah.
And I have met some absolutely great, excellent people through that. Very committed people.
Absolutely.
And it was one of them.
Interesting.
Yes, that was very gratifying, actually. It was, because sometimes those roles, those stakeholder roles, I mean, you can at times think, I may as well put my head in the dishwasher, because it's just like, well, we're not getting anywhere here, people. with the best will in the world, because things are complicated. I'm not being entirely facetious, but it was very heartening to then think that now those efforts had been recognised. You know, the dishwasher cycles had not gone unnoticed.
Yeah, absolutely.
You started very much, at one stage you were focusing on social housing providers, but it strikes me that the whole program has become a lot wider than that recently.
Yes.
What was it that kind of started that process off, and why, and what sectors now are where you see perhaps most progress so far, and what sectors do you think still need to be addressing this and getting on board?
So with our digital champion networks and the digital champion training, we are still very much focused on what I call the third or social impact sector. So it's social housing providers, local authorities, charities big and small. It's the people I see as the sort of civic and civil intermediaries, because they have the interface with the people that can be hardest to reach and hardest to support. And that's where I want to focus our work. You know, that's where we work. So housing was something that I worked with for a number of years and began to understand quite well. I'm not claiming to be an expert at all, but once you worked with a housing provider, you can replicate that model with others. So that became, I guess, the logical place to start. And it's when we got inquiries for our champion training from local authorities and from other people, we were like, oh yeah, you know. So that was a logical extension, and they continue to be the focus. So we do still work with a huge amount of social housing providers, but increasingly local authorities and charities and so on. We've actually evolved our champion work to we have a digital health champion product now, Digital Health Champions Network. And that takes some of the common things around digital championing, but applies it to a health context. And we've built that up with NHSX and other health providers. I've just been on a session with some of them. So interesting, that work, you know, in terms of supporting people to be digital health champions in the clinician context and with patients. We've got a really wide range of people using that training, from local GP surgeries to nurse practitioners to, you know, it's fascinating. So that's great. And then the Inspire program is something slightly different again. And that was, it's not what I call full-bodied champion training, because our digital champion training is in depth. It does carry certification. It is CBT accredited. You know, we're kind of serious about it being benchmarked properly. Inspire is a digital inclusion employee volunteering program. So that model, I would say, is digital champion light. You know what I mean?
Right.
Our idea with Inspire is that if we can inspire workforces to do something local and simple and easy, maybe we can then turn them into full-bodied digital champions in time. But my belief is everyone can do something, you know. 10 minutes is better than no minutes. So can we collectively stimulate 10 minutes? We've got millions of hours, right?
So where did Inspire start from, Emma? Because it didn't come fully formed out of nowhere. How did it get started?
No, well, bizarrely, or not bizarrely at all, I do have the pandemic to thank for that. We had started working with Capgemini pre-pandemic, because they're incredibly committed to giving back. I mean, and in a genuine way, because I think there's a lot of that about. But they have a track record on that, and they have a focus on digital literacy within their wider CSR work. So we had started talking, quite some time ago. They wanted a program where we developed some of their employees into champions, and those people went back into the community to age UK centres or to local community centres and did some work with people on the ground. And so initially we were going to run an in-person big training event in their London headquarters and take some of those people through that training. And then we got COVID. yikes. But it really was like literally, because again, I think that stuff is, we've lived through it, and so now it's 2 years ago, and it's a bit blurry, isn't it? But it was literally overnight. We want to keep this event running. What are you going to do? And we're like, not entirely sure.
Surely there's digital tools for this.
surely you could do this digitally. And basically, that's what. So we had to reimagine this thing at the speed of light. But it forced, with hindsight, didn't feel like this at the time, okay? But with hindsight, and also, by the way, I love Capgemini. They've been brilliant to work with. It was the most brilliant catalyst because it meant we flipped the model. We did it at great speed, but we suddenly had something that was actually far more valuable to the organisation and to us than the face-to-face model.
Absolutely.
And so it was, and that's where it started. So it was very exciting. Again, that's probably not the word I would have used at the time, but now I'm excited.
I'm excited.
Yes,
by
I can only imagine what other words might have been used in the privacy of your own home. It's like the ultimate pivot. Our sector, the social sector, has suddenly discovered the word pivot during lockdown, and they love it. They love it. Let's pivot.
Pivot. Pivoting again.
Yeah. So.
But it's that kind of what is it? Necessity is the mother of invention.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like that's really true. But also it's been so that was, let me think, that was September. That was we developed the program probably in the summer last year. We put the first cohort through it in September last year, and they have now put about 700 people through it. So we've iterated it along the way. We did the first last year. We did September to December really as a user test, I think, really. And then we opened it to the whole business. So we tested it within one business unit. Yeah. And then we opened it up. And it's just been such a joy to behold.
So you've started with one organisation and now it's available for other organisations.
So yes. As well. So now, yes. And again, credit to Capgemini because, I said, what we have here is something that can work outside you. I don't want to do that without you because that would be, it's not cricket, is it? Mm-hmm. And you have a place as to lead that, to be the inspiration for that, and they've been great about that. So yes, now again took a load more work, but now we're ready to roll it out to any other employer who wants.
So do you think Capgemini are going to take a place amongst the pantheon? Well, not pantheon exactly, but a number of commercial organizations who have kind of adopted digital skill building as a thing they do as part of their offer, like Lloyd's, like Barclays, that sort of thing. Yeah. Yes.
I do. And working with them to engage employees in the tactics and to it's again we've had to build champions within the organization, so we know a lot about not just how you engage the employees with the program, but how you engage their managers so that it's a system-wide thing. It's a structural thing. The organization has to see the value of that, and it has to be quite obviously beyond tokenism, and it has to work, and it has to be glitch-free, and it has to deliver results. And we went into it knowing that we would want to be able to evidence that the whole way. So that was also really interesting, I think, because we built a training course which has got these built-in points around collecting entry data and exit data from the employee learners. Is very subtle, but we've got really good metrics, and we can show organizations and other organizations, put your people on this, and 80% of them will go and do something for someone else.
Brilliant.
That's 80%. So important.
That's a great return.
Yeah. It's a big return, isn't it? Yeah.
It's huge. I think that's so important to be able to have that someone somewhere has this data.
Yes.
Because I think there's been, over the years, there's been lots and lots of really great projects, really great programs. But when you tried to find out what the impact of them was, understandably, a lot of them haven't really put a lot of effort into that, but it's really good. I detected a real change in how the phrase kind of digital champion is kind of accepted.
Yes.
In certainly in I work for a local authority. We're not the most forward-looking authority in our own internal ways of working. We're not the worst. We're not the best. But there's definitely been a firming up of this concept. And I think that Digital Unite must be a big part. And the certification of the training and the impact studies the impact data that you have. I think that must have percolated through to make it easier for those who aren't as careful on those things to actually be taken a bit more seriously in terms of what the impact can be assumed to be.
Yes. Yeah.
I do think we need to think though now about that terminology. As we're saying, digital is kind of, it's kind of you assume that it's going to be digital, but like it's more about inclusion or equity, or that's what we're championing. The people have choices to have better lives, more income, less debt, better housing, better opportunities by having access to the online world that other people take for granted. So
I think in some ways the digital word being such a, I'm going to say vague, but I could say fluid or multi-purpose or multifaceted type. The meaning of digital is not well pinned down, and I actually think that has been, at least to begin with, a bit of a strength, because I think that the focus on equity and equality of opportunity and so on, it might have been harder to get stuff underway across such a wide sphere if that had been the starting point, because digital kind of has this, if you want to look at it, it kind of has all the positive, forward-thinking, white heat of technology type connotation, but how it actually applies is actually different from that. So you're able to kind of play on that ambiguity slightly to make sure that it gets everywhere in ways I think that it might have been difficult if it had been a sector-based thing or a poverty-based thing from the start. And I'm not sure that says a great deal in positive about society or how things work, but I do think there's something in that.
And we are satisfied if it's achieving what we want to achieve. We don't care that much about what it's called, really.
That's right. As well.
So Emma, how is it going to roll out now? How are you reaching, how is your Heineken effect? How are you going to reach everybody who needs to be reached?
Well, we're doing it bit by bit, Pauline. We can measure our impact. So we've got an event on the 14th of October in real life, in the flesh, which you are very welcome to, because the afternoon is going to be on digital champions and social impact sector, third sector. But we've got a session in the middle of the day on Inspire, and I'm inviting 20 corporates who I'd like to be vanguard people under the wing of Capgemini to really champion the Inspire model within their businesses. And then we're just taking an approach to just try and target big employers, really, who we know probably are quite digitally literate, because the Inspire program works best when you've got a digitally comfortable workforce who can then pass their skills on. It's important to say Inspire isn't about teaching those employees digital skills. It's about leveraging their potential as people with digital skills. So that's our approach initially, would be to go to for organizations like Capgemini to start with, and then systematically work our way through the UK, bit by bit.
Oh, Sweyn has the event on screen now.
Yes.
Reinvigorating digital inclusion, and it's at the RIBA Portland, London, 14th of October, Thursday, 14th of October. I think I've probably signed up for it already, but
I hope so.
It looks really fascinating. So you're targeting large employers who will then run the program for their employees to support other employees, or to support people outside the organization?
So the call for people the employee learners who go through Inspire are then, at the end of the learning program, they make a digital skills pledge to help someone else. And part of the formulation of that in the training is find someone you know in your network. You know, this has also come out, the reason we ended up with Inspire when we couldn't do our in the flesh event in the community centre was, before you even think about going to help in the community centre, you can help someone you know. Your local networks are full of people with not good enough digital skills. So let's start local, let's do what we can. And also, a very important part of the proposition for the employee, that it should be easy to execute. If it's too hard to execute, it's complicated to arrange, it takes time, it takes you out of your workplace, especially in COVID times, it's just not going to happen, right? However, you can still do something because someone you know, or someone who knows someone you know, needs help. You know, we can be assured of that. There are, what, 20 plus million people with low digital skills. This is not acceptable, you know? You know,
the government has kind of formulated this essential digital skills, you know, the 5 essential digital skills and a standard now. Does your program kind of emulate that, or is it a different way of looking at it?
Do you know, we do cover the essential digital skills framework in the training program. So we make people, so the whole training program is like, what is digital inclusion? What does digital exclusion look like? You know, making people think about stuff. What are essential digital skills? What do we mean? So if you are a very tech savvy employee of somewhere like Capgemini, you're probably not even thinking about essential digital skills because you're so far over that stuff, right? Yeah. But the point of this program is to make you stop and think, oh yeah, if I couldn't do that, I'd kind of be a bit stuck, right? So it's awareness raising and context raising in that respect. So, and then the support that those employees are encouraged to give will, because it's with beginners and people with less confidence, will almost certainly be around foundation skills and essential digital skills for life. Less so skills for work, but we do have some good examples coming out of the Inspire program. One brilliant one that I absolutely love is a guy at Capgemini who helped his father with Excel spreadsheets so he could get back into work as a consultant. He had an accounting background, but he just didn't have the digital skills. And that was just like, there's a beautiful example of something you can do, isn't it? You know?
Excellent.
So yeah.
It'd be great to hear more stories like that, because that's what makes it human, isn't it? That's
yes.
what brings it home to people, that you can have this effect on the people closest to you.
Yeah.
Some of the people closest to you. Yeah.
I mean, sometimes I think, you know, sometimes also I have a little bit of a like, you know, a rage against the whatever. I think we have to shoot for the stars, when we have to have people who are programming and making rockets and all that. That absolutely has to be going on. But in parallel, we must not lose sight of the fact 20 million people don't have basic digital skills, right? We get too caught up with the rocket building. These people get further and further behind, and we still have this problem, and it's 2021, you know. It would be very convenient to forget about that, but it's not the truth, you know. And as to your point earlier, when you opened, it's at the root now of a sense of equality and participation. It's more important than ever. I mean, I think in another way, you know, when I said to you that, you know, COVID really was the reason why we came up with Inspire, COVID has been brilliant, I think, in terms of making this abundantly clear to everyone, finally, in ways that even after 26 years of riding real bikes and virtual bikes, I still have found myself thinking, I'm still saying the same thing. Yeah. Now I don't really have to do that talking anymore. Now I just do other talking, because it's like, it's
the
so,
case has been made.
It's the case has been made. Yeah.
Do you think that will persist? Do you think that will persist as things go back to in person?
Yeah.
Do you think we've actually spent long enough on it, or do you think things might slide back a bit?
No, I don't think they can slide back. Do you? I really don't.
Well, I certainly hope they don't. I mean, as I often say, I mean, there's a whole pile of accessibility and other stuff around how we've managed to do things using from wherever you happen to be kind of events. I don't like the remote word, or the online is just about all right as a description, but you know, come together wherever you are kind of type of stuff. I just have a niggle in the back of my mind that as we are more and more relieved over the next few months, hopefully, that we can all get back together in person in rooms in London or Edinburgh or Kirkle and Orkney or wherever, that the kind of real focus on involving everyone that can be involved might just slip away a bit.
I mean, I don't, well, let's see, but my feeling is too much has now changed, because if you think about service delivery, which will be one of the carrots and sticks that has to change people's behavior as service users, that's changed, and that's not going to go back to normal, because the service providers have realized there are massive efficiencies to be realized in ways of working that they hadn't thought of before, or catalyze that. So once the service delivery changes, the service users have no choice, or even less choice. And I don't see that reverting. I think that's going to be a continuum. I think the danger for me is that we forget how urgent it's felt, which is perhaps to your point there. But I think that door has been really pushed open. I was talking about this last week, and someone said, "Oh, you know, it's great to hear your what do they say? Your not enthusiasm, something like that, but you know, caution." And I thought, we always have to be cautious, and that's like built into everything. But let's not miss riding the wave here.
Oh no, I totally agree.
Which is that people are listening in ways they haven't done before, because it's absolutely crystal clear.
Yeah.
And we still have a lot of work, and we'll still always have a lot of work, because there are still going to be people left behind, even when this wave rides in. But it feels like, you know, I tell you what, it feels like there's less persuading to do.
No, I agree.
And more, I don't know if leading.
Constructive planning.
Correct.
Yeah, less. We must do something. This is an example of what we can do here to demonstrate.
Yeah.
Less of all those demonstratory things, and more kind of how are we actually going to do this for this constituency of people? Yeah, I totally agree with that.
I agree. I mean, I think 12 months ago, or 24 months ago, I couldn't have seen two constituencies in Birmingham being funded to run a digital literacy project by a funder, no matter how great they are. And the Heart of England Community Foundation is a wonderful funder. But they didn't have it in their heads how this might work. And now people are really clear what this means to people, because people were so desperate to connect at a time when they found it more difficult to connect.
It's the digital visionaries I feel sorry for, because suddenly all their visions are here and we have to get on with them.
What are they going to do now? Emma, who do you see as kind of fellow travelers in this space? If that's not too indelicate a question about the market, if you like, for digital inclusion and digital skills building.
Pauline, that's a delicate question. I think there are lots of people I've worked with over the years who do fabulous work in terms of promoting digital inclusions. I mean, some of our best friends would be Citizens Online in that respect. I think, you know, I admire the work Good Things Foundation does, but I think I'm most interested in all the organisations that have adopted these models themselves and thought about themselves and want to equip themselves, because, you know, the digital literacy solution has to fit the organisation that needs it. And there are lots of things we can share, but that leadership and that visionary piece will, I think, possibly always have its sectoral champions in that respect, you know. I think in the corporate sector, I mean, I have to admire people like Lloyd's with their index and things like that. I think they've contributed hugely to our understanding of state of play. I think it's slightly, I don't know, you know, it's curious that it would be a bank who had to come up with that and it not be of wider fundamental national interest would be something I have long wondered, but I've ceased to wonder about it, and now I think, well, at least they are doing it, and good on them. Yeah. And I think we've got examples of good behaviours all across the board. I think I think sharing is very, very important in this area. But I think the other thing that I'm really keen on, and this is also how Digital Unite operates, is that we see digital inclusion as a business, it's not a project. So a project-based approach to this is not going to do anything except give us 3-year cycles of activity. This is not a long-term solution. And I think that's more important than ever now. So we sell access to our champion training because we can't give it away. And also, I do think we shouldn't give it away because you're paying for a service like you pay for any other service.
Sure, and you're paying for quality as well. So that's important.
But I think that idea of value and really infrastructural integrity importance is really key. Because otherwise, and that's another thing COVID did, and which I was very thankful about. I think it's taken digital inclusion out of the project definition. We can't live our life based on projects. We've got to make systemic change happen, and we've got to support that and sustain it.
Does Digital Unite have a trademark of Digital Champion? Is it your trademark? Is it trademarked by you?
Well, I mean, a Digital Champion you can't trademark.
No, okay.
But obviously we have IP control over all our training materials and our content.
Great. So, Emma, if people want to contact you out there in an online world, where's the best place to find you?
The best place to find me is maybe through the Digital Unite website, the Inspire website, or just find me on LinkedIn. I'm very easy to find. Really. Yeah.
Good. No, and we're just going to cover one more story before we close the show, Emma. So stick with us.
Yes.
And this is maybe a bit contradictory, but we do find that in some cases people have felt digitally excluded because they don't have a smartphone or they don't have access to being online. So Sweyn, if we just cover the Sunderland story, which is one I picked up over the weekend. And the headline was Sunderland AFC risk letting down our loyalest, loyalest, in case anyone's wondering, fans with this digital agenda. And this was a story by Rich Spate on SB Nation, which is a network of communities where sports fans from all backgrounds gather to share their passion for the teams they love. And the story was that outside the Stadium Light on the Sunday in question, whenever it was, before Sunderland AFC ladies' first home match in front of fans since the pandemic, there was little or no help for the fans who have turned up hoping to pay on the door. The writer, the journalist, had heard a story about a Blackburn Rovers ladies fan who travelled to the Stadium Light to watch their team play on the biggest stage the FA Women's Championship had to offer, only to find there was no way into the ground. They did eventually gain entry, but only after the driver of the Blackburn Rovers team coach used his own phone to help the person to purchase and download a ticket. The crucial information that it was an all-ticket game and tickets could only be purchased online with no cash or card turnstile available, and that the ticket office would be closed, was only available to those who had internet access and who'd seen the announcements on the club's official social media or on Roche Report's content in the lead up to the game. And they've heard, the writer says they've heard of fans who are losing patience and feeling, to be frank, disrespected and discriminated against by the one-size-fits-all approach taken by the club, even those with internet access, credit cards and digital devices being frustrated by the tiny dots used to select seats on the ticketing website, for instance. So that's a user experience problem there. The article goes on to say the data might well be telling decision makers at the club that only a small percentage of the fan base is directly affected, or that running the numbers shows that the lack of a physical club shop hasn't dented shirt sales this season. It might ultimately be good for running the club as a lean and mean tight ship, making it fighting fit for the future. But the data can only ever tell part of the story, and it often leaves out the human element that's so important in football and in life generally. So I thought that was a good one to reflect on. We don't, we know we've talked about digital inclusion. Recognizing that somebody might not be digitally excluded if they don't have the technology, the device, or the skills themselves, but have access to somebody who does, that they might feel themselves to be included, and we would probably, say they were. But if they feel excluded, and certainly in this case where tickets are only available online, and the information about the tickets only being available online was only advertised online, then yeah, it's a no-brainer, really.
Yes, I hadn't read this story in advance, and when you got to the part, when you read out the part that the information that tickets are only available online was only available online, I had to laugh. I did laugh out loud. Apologies.
I have to say, with my digital literacy project, I'm very proud of the fact. I think, myself and my two project workers, Stan and Cheryl, have had this conversation that we're trying to reach people who are digitally excluded or digitally illiterate, whatever you like to call them. And, if they're digitally excluded, they're not going to have a device, therefore they're not going to find out about the project anywhere except maybe on a notice board. So they've been kind of busy identifying notice boards in the constituencies and sticking up posters.
Excellent.
So yeah.
I think that, we mentioned the Lloyd's index as some, and what data means. I think there was some questioning about the data basis for that Lloyd's index in a couple of articles that we covered a few weeks ago.
Yeah, that it was only based on people who already use banks.
They're based on their own customers or banks' customers rather than the population in general. So I think, whereas it's great to see a business-like approach to make things self-sustaining, there's definitely a need for focus on that sort of universality type arguments, so that we don't get misled by our own data, because that's quite easy to do. That's something we've learned recently. It's that. And
we have constantly said, I think, on our programs that don't leave people out. Always provide an alternative to digital, so that people feel they can have it. We don't leave people out. Were you going to say anything about that, Emma? Did you want to say anything about that?
No, I think they're all very good points.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think we've probably come to the end of the program. Thanks very much again, Emma, for joining us. I think it was very useful. We're very keen on the Inspire program. We think it'll run, and we would hope to hear about it up and down the country. I know we'll be hearing more about it in the West Midlands very shortly. I'm very pleased to say, and hopefully more widely around the country as well. So thanks very much for joining us, and have a great week.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much for having me, and it's been very lovely to chat to you both. And
thank you very much.
Thought-provoking and motivating at the same time.
Well, that's great. Can't do better than that. Thank you very much, and goodbye.
Thank you very much, and good week.